The other one's become quite simple. This one's more complicated.
Yeah. You know how to see if this is working? I press the button. You don't know? I press the record button. I first turn it on, then I press the record button.
Anyway, the truth is, this also records the sound.
Yeah, right.
So until Shimon or somebody, maybe Beis Hashem will come that they know, that'll be okay for the time being. Because this also actually records it. This just, heightens it a bit.
And they use the sound? They can use it?
It's used.
They can use the sound from there?
I think they can, yeah. Right, so we saw on Omid Tov Kov Ayin, we saw the Klolos noise that we were dealing with was that the
right there, you have to see the date.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, so today is Leil Tu Shvat Toshin Samachez, Hemshchaim Beis Chelik Aleph, Maimon Dibo Maskal Halos Hashem Kol Goyim Omud Tov Kov Ayin. And we saw the union at the last beetle in the Sitra Achra was due to the Chayser Slabshus of the LP, but it was Davkia Dova Mesef Lahem Kilo, and it was Ayin Bepinas Makiv. And we saw that it was brought down from the Eitchaim that Kodesh Eino Misarav Choyel, and that was a close in that their Nitzut Nimtzu B'Teichom was also B'Chinas Golos, even though there was an Akuda Pnimi, but that was also an enablement Shel Golos. And we described those concepts at some length. Nimtzu, that their whole Chayus was only just to keep their, wasn't a inif an oil of a kilo eloki or into to be poil as a inyan eloki, but purely to keep them going for the negative aim and goal that's there in their whole existence, that they should become misbatel alidei the gila kiddush alidei avedus ha'adam. And therefore, Kumte said even Bisman Hiyosom, they're not really there in a state of genuine Chaim, but is mitzad the musik of Chaim Amiti Malpi Kedusha. That's what we drew. I have del bein Chaim how it is mitzad the Sitra Achra, and Chaim how it is mitzad the Inen HaKedusha. And we brought a dugma lazeh from the Inen and the Shioines, that there's something that its whole Inen is only be mispatel, the Ein Inen mitzad atzmai, and ein b'zeh shum inyan shel oyev hagilei eloki v'chulu, it's ador shel humad and al lenaseis es ha'adam. However, we saw that the Kaviyachol, the Maila in this Shainas was at Miyad, that he's aimed b'teikif neged in the Sayin, or al chaponim al yidei shehu aimed b'teikif neged han Sayin, yachol leot shelo Miyad. Then there's a beetle in the nitzot of the Nisoyan Lagamri. And we saw that was a certain Maila Kaviyach in Nishaynus, that once has been the Amida ben Nisoyan, and that Amida is caused mitzad the Kavan Elakis in the whole Inen on Nisoyan, like we see by the Kedah, for example, or Tachlis Elaki in that. Then the whole Inen becomes Potel, Hoyo Kaloi Hoyo. Ilu, we saw the Inyonim. Begashmis for Chumius or Oilam, what they are Manasseh or Adam, not better of Nisoyen, but he has to be Miskaber on them, Alidei in an Aveda, that they have a certain Koishi in them, because they don't become Mispachel Mikov or Lagamre, No, they continue, as it were, to use the expression, here he is back again. They keep sort of reappearing and nudging the Adam, despite the fact that he's already caused in them a certain chalishas, b'pa'amachas, or b'kama piyomim. And so that we saw was also, the nitzutz in them was for the same meaning. It was only in order that there should be the Avedus Adam, levatlom mi alidei avidosai. So we saw we Alkain Haim Mispayud Aleph, that's what we're holding near the about a third of the way up, a little less, on Tov Ayin. Alkain Haim Mispayud Aleph Mefnei Shachayis Nexo Lodova B'fnei Atzmai. Alkain Haim Mispayud Aleph. Lahainu Hayud Ksorim Shein Es Sfiras Danoiga. ויש בזה גם 10 נצוצות דקדושה כנ"ל, אך אינם בבחינת חייס להם. So we saw there was the Yud Ksorim, what there the Etzem 10 Sfiras Araya in Klippa, and we brought at the beginning of this chapter, the Lashon in the Eit Chaim, that there's also 10 netzutzes dekadusha, which are nimta b'toichom b'pnimiyas, although we saw that wasn't b'chinas chayis lohem. In other words, that the chayis is from the makiv. The presence of that pnimi in them is more in a state of golus, and even to the point that we asked in the last year, what was the point of having the whole Inyan if it's really not Inyan shel chayis amitiyas, and the Ike chayis is from the makiv. And it's anyway belavachi begolos a kilo is a tachlis is a tam yesh bezeh. So we saw that we have to say that there has to be also a chayes pnimiyas kidei shesof kosof, that there'll be a biro amiti in the clippers either now or the osid to take it from the ad mamish, that they will also be able to be misbaro mishapeich legamri le kedusha, which means that there has to be a certain oil pnimi in them which will be it, or even shall call us, or yesh b'zeh eize miktas bittel, eize miktas kli lekabbalah. But they say it's possible so there be a biro b'der pnimiusa. Mashekin, if it was only mitzad damakiv, it could be that they would be lost altogether, but der chavoden or in yonim of that sort. Is the fact and leidok we said that what was the diuk of the fact that Ike Chayas is mitzad damakiv, but that we find in Kedusha Gam. Perek Mem Ches the Alter Rebbe in Tanis Mavai, how the whole Ike Chayas of the Yesh and the Mehisavas of the Nivroim is anyway mitzad the Makiv, and he calls it over there as Ike HaChayas. If that's Ike HaChayas coming Kedusha, then was it there to Ben Zeller? We spoke about that last week as well, mentioning that Ein Nochanami mitzad etzem ha'isavas the oil makif is b'havdolah, but there is the possibility and the purpose and the kavona and the tachlis that the nevroim al chaponim the odom, he should be able to be not only margish but eventually even masik the oil makif, and eventually that oil makif should be nimshak mamish b'pnimiyas afilu alidei avedus odom. It's only makif mitzad the etzem isavas, but not mitzad the mitis atachlis in the chayas. Ilukan, that's the whole chay, that's the way they are. Ein kol sikui that it would be murgish b'hem or nimshak lehem. No, it's imad aleim mil michael. So that's where we're holding. I'll say who inyan upchim sa yudalev. What it's interesting, this derech agav, from that we see, like it's Mavua in Perek Vov, in Tanya was not Mavua, but it appears over there in Perek Vov in Tanya also, that the Esa Spheres of Noiga are called Ksorim, even the Spheres. Not just the Makif is called Kesser, but even the Esa Spheres themselves are called Ksorim. Esa Ksorim, the Noiga. What they're the Esa Spheres. Once again, we have to say that the Inyan being that the Inyan of a Keser is the Toichev. The Toichev of a Melech is this Keser. Sheesh b'zeh gam Inyan shel Makiv. It expresses the Inyan of his snasas and his brem. In Kedusha, the erste Sphira are called as a Sphira, we had the old story in the Emshel. The shame Sphira and wild Sphira, that indicates in van oor, teken voor oor, beetle, indicates in lower madrigas, van mispa, of a meteus amusik, it indicates in van light, beetle. That's the word Sphira. If they're called Ksorim, that means that they're all at loggerheads one with the other. Each one of them is, even from Teichu, from Mitziyusay, what's altered in how it is in Toyu. And therefore, since they derive from the Nafila of the Natutus in Toyu, therefore they have that aspect about them that even their Sphiras are really called Ksorim. In other words, there's no interaction between them so much, but each one of them is Kilateka from Tzias Bifnei Atzmai, and therefore, even though that's the Pnimiyut, that's called Esa Ksorim. ובכן זה י"א שהוא המקיף תלווין זקו שזהו עיקר החי שלהם שעומד בכינס מקיף עליהם. That expression לווין זקו, or that's in the Keteris Kufa, that's one of the things that are mentioned over there. So Lafia Kabbalah, the levin zaka, that's the makif which holds all the other Samonia Keteris, that's what holds them, that's what gives them their chayas. So later on, in Emshachir, not all that terribly far from here, the Rebbe is masbir what is the Inyan of Levin Zako. He's masbir a bit more in detail what it is, and that's what he calls Atik the Klipper. And it's what he calls Atik the Klipper. And the Inyan from Zako and Levino, Zako is killed the Inyan from Malchus. If I'm not mistaken, he's masbir later that's Inyan of Malchus, Dasia, at Yerod, Mamslamata, and a certain chayas and nimshik from Malchus, Dasia, that Makif to the Inyan Aklippus, that's called Zacho, that's because it came from Malchus Dasia, which is really shot to the Inyan Kedusha. When Levino is another Inyan, what Levino has also got in itself the idea of whiteness, or pshitas, that's the Toikev, and the Makif more in the Inyane HaKlippus. So over there, it's stated, maybe we should wait till we get over there and we'll see it more bifnim, rather than talking about it believe bifnim. Over there, the Rebbe makes Haora, which is Me'ira, B'chol Inyane Ma'ilu, that in Kedusha, the higher you are, the higher the level, once you start, then that's more the Toikif and more the Bittul of the Inyan HaKedusha. The more these scholars Toikif are Bittul. He said in Klippus it's verkehrt. The lower you go, that's where you get the Toikif. The more you follow up in the Inyan from Choysa HaBittul, Choysa HaOyer, then that's where the Toikif becomes more. In other words, it's the lower ones, the ones that are how do you call it? The versteppte capitals that are right down at the bottom. They're the ones that make all the difficulties, and they're the ones that cause all the teikif and the bren. Rachman in Islam was ein kan machen lo letet to Moses says you do that some of the greatest Rishoyim in history that did all the damage and all they were tipshim and lo b'derech kile hachachma v'lo b'klau Rachman in Islam. Is so that's a fascinating that the Makif of the Levina Zako is really at the end of the Klippus. In other words, that their Atik is really once they finish their Esespheres, then you touch in on their Kesa. Ilu Lamaila in Kedusha, the Kesa and everything is Lamaila al Inyanim. Ilu in the Klippus is B'diuk Fakir. That Makif of Levina Zako, that's Atik the Klipper, well, that's really Nimtza B'takti is called HaKlippers. And yet, Davki, that's where the highest comes from. And that's what also gives them Davki, because that's the Merchach HaKi Otzu, HaKi Rochek from the Inyan HaKedusha. Therefore, there's the Toikif of Yesh, so like Pare. He's called, interesting enough, he's called Arik the Klipper, Pare. The Levin Zach is even deeper than him. But Pare is called Arik the Klipper. And if he's got the same meaning, he said, he was the take of Bren Vayeshes and what you might call the Ha'oza of the Klipper. And therefore there's a whole Ayin brought down in my mother says not only in here in Ayin Beis but in other Sheikhim that boy al para they should come instead of go, no, come with me. The Zohar answers a teretz that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he started going really to Para, to the Sof, to the last showdown with him, he was taken in to also to Madurin, Boelam Klippers, and he saw the Tanin Hagodl, Haroivit, that was in him from Para. Then he said he can't do it; it's too much for him. He can't face us. I'm in Bren, as I stated. Moshe Rabbeinu said he can't. So therefore the Aviv said, "Boy, come with me." And it was, I'll go with him and bait again, and then for sure we'll bring him down. And that's the Ayin from Boy instead of Lech, but that's in the Zohar Kodesh. So it's written in those drushim in Siddur. Here in Ayin Beis also is brought down that that's Ayin from Arif the Klipper. And Moshe Rabbeinu, his Ayin is Chochma, therefore he can be Mavatal also to be known. When he meets up with the Ayin from Klipper, how this mams, even Lamailami, called Medida Vagbala, Lamailami called Zeh. Then Moshe Rabbeinu was choishish, Shema lo yeh b'yichol levatlei. Therefore, you have to have a David so should go along with him and be mevatel. It would seem that in later generations, the Moshe Rabbeinus of the later generations, they had to take on themselves, and they already found koheres to deal with, even with those sort of inyanim. In other words, it's like it's written in certain places. Once Abe gives koher to a certain inyan, then everybody can. Whoever is shaytuk can take it. It becomes similar to what is written at the end of last week's parsha. The Mizbech is called Hashem Nisi. So the Baal Shem Tov said, why is it called Hashem Nisi? Because when the Eibster makes a nes, then it's a Chiddush Godel, and it's a Chiddush which is Mashana, the whole union of Teva, Chayei Odom, El Shenenu Mianes. Olachre, it's already been made, that becomes part of the whole Teva, that already becomes a chelik of the Anhogas Oilam. If the next nes is going to have to be a bigger one. That's the Taish Hashem Nisi, that's already become my nes. That's it, it's not the Moshe. Those should mine it. Yeah, I've already put that one in the pocket of what you might call ordinary Seder HaChayim. Yes, we should time weiter. In other words, the war against the Molech, the final one, is really going to be big time. It's just it's fascinating. The Rebbe brings it in a place. The Rebbe's got in a mime about it. The Targum Yonason says, Hashem v'Amalek midoya doya. He says, Dora de Achshov, Dora de Moshe, Dora de Malcha, Dora de Malcha Mashiach, and Dora de Elam Haba. It's like it seems that even after Moshiach, there's still going to be a dachestika inyan of a Molech, and I feel in Elam Haba. Uraya Kavanah Gita, in order to get into Elam Haba, you'll have to get rid of another delicate of Mamish in Elam Haba. Anyway, as I state in the Targum Yonason. So let's get back to our theme. Exactly how we got onto that, I don't remember. But anyway, that's the Indian of the Makif Aleihim, the Makif Levein Zako. That's it. The Chiddush Gadol is that the Rebbe writes here, that's an Atik text. That's the Koach Aki, Takif, Sheyesh Lehem. Ponim Shehu Shezeu Ika HaChai Shelehem She'im B'chinas Makif Aleihim. We're already masber that even in Kedusha we also have the Inyan from Ika HaChai. Al Zeh Hu Inyan Yud Aleph Samamone HaKtoiros Lahalis Ulavarer Hayud Aleph Kisorim. That's pretty, tremendous going. To be Mavada, the Yud Aleph Kisorim, that would be apparent, even the Makif, the Lovein Lazaka, even the Chayes. So that's a tremendous koyah to be Mavada and Ma'aleh, that. But Hine, says the Rebbe, Ibam Elkum Tois, that there's no Isarvis in the Inyan and Klippers. The Ike Kedusha, what holds them in life and gives them their kiyum, is Mudom here. So the Rebbe said, we find another case where there is a Hisarvis of the Noiga al-Choponim, or the Liyumazeh and the Kedusha. So he said, Vehine benefesh alekis benefesh abamiyas. A new theme now. Harei anefesh alekis mislabish benefesh abamiyas shemeklippus Noiga. ואינו עמדס על ראשו בבחינס מקיף לבוא, כי אם מלובש פוי בבחינס פנימי ממש. Benson, can you just check if that's working properly? Here's an interesting, this is Kilo B'derech Shaila or Biro, al smach what we said before, that we said that the clippers and their chayes are never be hisarvas. Here we see an interesting Indian that the nefesh alakis mamish dwells bekirvas mokim, and not only bekirvas mokim, but in an Indian of what of his slabshas in the nefesh habamias, and that's an interreactory slabshas. It's with all what you might call all the dinim and all the aspects of what we understand in this slabsha. Ve'eno misarav kiim mulubash b'bchinas oya pnimi mamish. Now what's the heichacha that it's mamish ayin shoya pnimi? Sharei hanefesh habami is poyo ba'akoyches the nefesh alakis. Sheboim ba'ak shoma alidei slabshas ois lahaskir lahaskolis gashmi. In other words, what the answer is, that the nefesh habami is poyo after nefesh alakis shinuim loy lefi erech ha'amiti shel nefesh alakis klal. In other words, what you might call shinuim, almost legaliusa, even from Yeridas Ma'alosa. And it's put down in other places by Barichis about that, how the nefesh habami causes a certain shinuim in the oven agila moichin and in amidas noch inyanim in the nefesh alakis. So here the Rebbe says that one of the inyanim is that the nefesh alakis mitzad etzem inyona is shata hasoger, or that's hasoger alakis, or not to hasoger v'askolas gashmiyas. Or beklal hasoger hi bag shoma she'ein ze klal kamoy hasoger sa nefesh alakis be'etzem. So two inyanim. First of all, he says that it can be ad kedi kach that it causes haskolas gashmiyas by the nefesh alakis, and then he said, generally speaking, it causes the hasoga to be ba'ag shoma, but that's not the oifen of the hasoga the nefesh alakis mitzad atzmo. What does he mean haskolas gashmiyas? I mean, what does the nefesh alakis? What does she need haskolas gashmiyas? She needs to be masig. What's happening with the world, with the gashmiyas, with all the the nefesh Tivius knows all those in Yonim anyway. We should have the nefesh alakis. Does she need to be masculine? Asogis gashmiyas. So we have to say that the kavanah of is we see that the nefesh alakis, particularly in order to put proper order in a lot of things, al pi kedusha has to know certain inyanim. In other words, but they're not her Ika Indian, and they came without these slapses in the nefesh habamis. To a certain extent, that's kilo almost like an effect of the nefesh habamis on the nefesh alakis. The Ayin, for example, the nefesh alakis sometimes, in order to be masbir betuf taram Ayin of tachlis hakedusha, it has to use all sorts of facts in the world that add up to the listeners, but really the ikar hashpah be'inyan is from the nefesh alakis. Of a b'shas ma'aser, the nefesh alakis is borrowing on all sorts of haskolas. The gashmias would normally belong to the nefesh hativius or to the higher echelons of the nefesh habamis. And yet, nonetheless, we see that the nefesh alakis is yored la'asoi pinyonim ela or al chaponim to be massing those things al pi kedusha, but after became how they are in the gashmistic world. That's already haskola. That's already haskola gashmiyas, or even your ter poshut. That sometimes, in order for the man to look after himself, to see that he should be misnaik, but calling yonah al pi kedusha, then he has to know certain. The nefesh alakis has to bother her head with certain inyonim. I know medical facts or nachazol inyonim. That should be Messiah, the Odom, in his avodah, that he should know how to guard his health, or to be nishma, minyonim musayomim, and I feel in inyoni kashrus, kedusha, sometimes you have to be masik ahead of masik, the nefesh elokis kommen in yonim, which, if not the fact that she was mislabish in a physical situation as having to do directly with the nefesh abamiyas, then it could be that it would have been shaykh all those in yonim. But also upon him, we see that the nefesh abamis causes the nefesh elokis has to be masik certain haskolas gashmiyas. Because kosher loima that the kavanah is that it causes a yirid in the nefesh elokis, that she's masik as och in yonim as even the nefesh abamis. That's very difficult to say. You can't very well learn that pshat. So therefore we have to say that even though there are haskolas mitzad the kavanah of kedusha, but nonetheless they're gashmiyas or beklal hasoga. He said when any form of hasoga, even when she's masik in yonim which are purely on her side, dahainu in yonim elakus, and but he said there bahag shoma, they have a certain material and physical touch to them compared to how she's masik those in yonim in olam ha'elyon teram yiridosala lamata. Even when she's oisik purely in her in yonim, not in yonim for gashmis l'toivas in yonim is yonim, but purely in her in yonim, the asoga is in a form of hagshoma. So there he said, Ayin said, Klal kamay asogas and nefesh elokis be'etzem, meaning how she is mamish mitzad her inyan, and if she were to be moved out completely mi'inyone haguf vi shlapshus in the nefesh abamiyas, then her oifen would be her oifen asoga. It would be Ayin, how it is in Ganei, which is a completely different Indian altogether. A country that sees only the beetle, and sees only the Ayin Eloki, in a country it's Masbir. The different Oifanim of beetle of all the Nivroim, Chulivod Lamaila Misher. Till it comes to the Yin von Ayin Zulasecha, in Chassidus Baruch. Well, a Hefer, and the opposite.
You can't discount you can't discount the danger that the nefesh elokis will get.
The danger?
The danger.
Yeah, sure. Kol hadrachim b'cheskes sakona. Yeah, but it's very difficult to say that you mamish schlepp the nefesh elokis into being like the nefesh abamis. What you do is you slip her into the nefesh abamis as inyonim. Abu Kamavu in Perikov Dalad, she always is ready to back out, and immediately the whole tumult stops. Then she immediately bounces back into kedusha. That's why he says gam b'shas achet hoyze ba'omni I toyet. That's what the Alter writes over there. In other words, it's only a yerida, but she preserves her kedusha. After we take the yerida, that's the point I'm trying to get across. Understand? But that yerida is mitzad the fact that she's nimtza in the nefesh abamis. V'zeh yesh leze tachlis. The tachlis of that is to be tachat mavarahim. But nonetheless, it's a yerida, and even that's what he says now. That even when she's masik her in yonim, it's nonetheless not the way it would be. Behiyoisa b'fnei atzmo mamish.
But isn't it a real danger?
You're right. Yesh b'sekam minyan shel sakona mesuyamos. Yes, but again to
what does it mean?
What is the nature of that sakona that needs a bia? So the sakona is only again the way she might get dragged into, or not what would actually happen to her. That's what he brings in Perikov Dalet. She never really gets, affected. She just gets dragged in there. And that's what he brings it. The Rosh Hashanah can be Tom face. And so it's the Melech's head. It's not anything else. It's not that the Melech's head becomes shot to the Beis Gizeh or Rachman in the Tzlan. It gets dragged into the Beis Gizeh.
What's the Indian of Kritus?
Kritut. A Kritus. Yeah, Kritus. That's what the Alter Rebbe in Igeres HaKodesh, that krisis is not that anything happens to the nefesh elokis, chas v'sholom. Her whole ashpoah in the guf becomes nifsak. The whole chayas of the ashpoah of the nefesh elokis in the guf can become nikras with nifsak, which means that he lives just purely mitzat the nefesh achiyunis b'vad. That's not that you chop the nefesh elokis in half. The nefesh elokis just gets blocked off. She's not able to all the little sort of chutim that keep her kesher with the guf cut off, so she just retires. But not that anything happens to the nefesh elokis, and that's why it is that even Chayvit Krisis can eventually come to Elam Haba, because the Nefesh Elokis remains B'Shlei Musa. That's Ubeklau Asoge Ula Hefer. However, the other way around, that's what you might call the Yerida and the Chisoron in the Islapshas. Oval Hefer, and Nefesh Elokis Poyo B'Nefesh Abamiyas. The Islapshas works both ways. Like all forms of Islapshas, they work in two ways, and therefore Shagam Hu. What is the Pu'ula in the Nefesh Abamiyas? That even he, meaning the Nefesh Abamiyas, Yovin Inyan Eloki Yizbara Alidei Zeh. In other words, the Nefesh Elokis has also her big influence on the Nefesh Abamiyas. That's the ultimate tachlis of the whole thing. The other inyanim are just the price of the ultimate purpose of tachlis and nilto in the whole thing is the fact that she causes the Nefesh Abamiyas also to have a havana, because he also has moichin, and through that havana he becomes misale even to a dveikus and a cleaving to Elakus. But the price of that is that she has to be yearned into a certain hag shoma. So here we see a case where the Indian Eloki is mamish betuich islapshus kroivo in the dova whom is mesitracha, not in the way that we described earlier that they are even b'makif the chayes the kedushas are even b'makif legamrei and not b'hisar of its cloud. Harei, so the Rebbe Hakam shenefesh abamis uminoiga v'nefesh Elokis ubetachlis hakedusha. Tachlis HaKedusha. Hariheim b'chinas Islapshas. V'eina nivla spoi chas v'sholim, and the Nefesh Elokis doesn't get swallowed up in the Nefesh HaBahamiyas. And we said earlier, in all other inyanim of the Klippers, ilu, the inyan of Kedusha was to be mishkat in them, then it would be nivla. That it would just have no ashpoah klalu. Nivla means even more than golas. It would just completely swallowed up. And if I said the Rebbe, that doesn't happen. Adarabba, yesh bekoicho limshogalov ulahachniyoi tachlis memshaltoi. On the contrary, she can gain from the whole in the upper hand over the Nefesh Abamiyas until she eventually becomes. So lefi kol ha'klolim amus kodim li'ilu. Here we have a very fascinating yetziv cloud. We have a thing which is tachlis hakedusha mamish. The Nefesh Elokis is mamish the highest in and mamish from chokhmei lo, and even lamaylam is a b'shur harishain nimtzo b'teich ha'eslapshus in kol oifanei ha'eslapshus in ha'in is a klippus noiga. But that's not only stam noiga, but a noiga mit der ganze teikuf of klippus noiga. And when the ganze almumi is, and the ganze inyan of the Nefesh we sind yet nonetheless beslapshus. Ve'einem poelim bittul ze bezeh ela adarabba der poel bittul dafki ba'droga and dafki b'der bira. So therefore, as a sort of shaila, how does that happen? Charik loim ma shezeu poelim hazeh dafke shemitzad madregas hasiv kol almin shenimtzo dafke poelim hazeh yochol liyos Slapshus kozois, the Ayin is chabras toivora. Now here we see the Rebbe said it's a chabras between two inyonim, ad kedei kachafuchim toiva vora. The Nefesh Elokis is toiv and noiga. Yes, tam noiga mitzadat is ra, because derek noiga is the nefila into the inner klippers. V'amera that's a inyan from is chabras toiva. Toivora. That's only mitzad the gilu aseiv kolam. Mitzad madregas. He didn't say gilu. Madregas aseiv kolamin shenim tzadavki b'olam hazeh. Now that's an interesting bitui, an interesting lashon that oir aseiv v'nimtzo davki b'olam hazeh. Now it's a lashon which occurs in Drushei Chassidus. It's not something that you just it's an unusual thing that appeared here and we've never seen or heard of it before. It occurs in Tzidus that the Seiviv is nimtzo dafki b'olam hazeh. But that's Teresh Biur. Since the Seiviv is mamish, Sheikha Ka'oiro, that's the koyach mashve as kulam. However, mitzad the presence of the Eraseiv, it's able to be miyachad and all two things which normally I wouldn't be able to be held together. And that's how derech we did in by the neshama b'teich haguf. If you go the nefesh alikis b'teich haguf, is also boyim kozeh. Yato mishamro b'kirbi as you do it. Well, that mishamro b'kirbi is the gila aseiv. Kach is everywhere. Become drushim. So it's just a different oifanim and a different sidrei gilui, the same basic principle. If not the koyach hasevi, we can't have two opposites like toiv ora or guf and nefesh alakis mamish biyachad will be slavshus pnimius b'yivim kozeh. So was it the beer? The Indian from Seivu Kalamin is Nimtza Dafki Beilam Hazeh. In the Bossi Lagani, he keeps using the expression Meir Miskala Oira Seivu HaMeir B'chol Oilamis B'chulu Almin B'shove. So L'chera Seivu Kalamin is Meir B'chulu Almin. Whether the title it's Nimtza Dafki Beilam Hazeh, Dafki Nimtza Beilam Hazeh, where the title there?
Is that in a Basi Lagani?
She said that's the Indian of Basi Lagani, basically. Of a say state in the Drush from Basi Lagani.
The Indian of this world is the Indian of the Gan of David.
Can I say? אני לא נכנס לזה ברגע, אני לא שולל את זה, נכון? אבל state dort in כמה וכמה אויסיאס, the Eraseiv is Meir B'kol Olam Mishova, על ידי שקף יסטרח וכולו זה, is Meir B'kol Olam Mishkala B'kol Olam B'shova. It's anyway there B'kol Olam B'shova, no, it's Mishkala. Like here, whether it takes it here, even before it's Mishkala, it's Nimtza Dafki B'olam Hazeh, whether it's Nimtza Dafki B'olam Hazeh, whether it takes. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a beer later on here in Ayin Beis, and Ulai Zebo Eid Mekem specialist, that the Oira Seivev, because Seivev is really Lamaila Migilui, and therefore where you're in a Oilamos or Oilamois, Lashon Rabbi, but it's a pilladig gezak. I don't know if I can really say I understand it, but talking say Havana. Nira li shazay state that where you're in Oilam or Oilamas, Lashon Rabbi, was Ika Inyanim, but Tachlis Agilui is that's what their Inyan is, and everything is Lafia Seida of Kalim and Oiris, and they're all Meir, one and the other, and they're all Alsus Begola, there's nothing. The Hilam, and the Hilam is only just for the sake of the Gilui. The Seivei Kolalmin, mitzad the fact that he's Lamaila Megilui, he's the Atzmi, the Gilui Atzmas, he can't be Nimtza in Azar world. He can't be called Nimtza by Ilam, because he's Lagamri Lamaila from the whole Seder. And therefore he's Meir there in a way, but he's not really Nimtza. The Ilu Bilamata B'ilam Hazeh was exactly the opposite, where there's no Gilu and there's no Kalim to the Gilu and everything is Behilim, B'tachas Ahilim. Well, Davki there, he can be in some form of presence more than what normally. Why? Because since he's all in as he's Behilim, Avus is als Behilim, he can, as it were, he can be there and he can appear there. His Belavach, everything is Behilim, and his Indian is Belavach being moved over Ne'elam. Wherever he can be more present, as they state in certain drusim. But that kufa needs a beer of all him as they state. Edifar.
That's why now maybe in 770 you have atzmus.
Yeah.
There's no gilu.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, the giluim are not round. The fire, it's got the etzem. Yeah, it's a good point what you say. Upon him, Lafizeh Kumtais, that I was whether touch Meir B'chol Olam is B'shava, Nimtza B'chol Olam B'shava, Meir B'chul Hu Almin, if that's Mavu, and those Drushim, that's a Ha'ora from the Sefer. That's what he said very nicely. Etzem. That's a Ha'ora from the Sefer. A Ha'ora from the Sefer, he's Meir B'chol Olam B'shava. He's also L'mayla Megillah, I mean, he's L'mayla Megillah everywhere. Oh, but the Etzem HaSefer, the Atzmius of the Seiva, what you might call the real McCoy of the Seiva, the Emerson Inim, what Seiva really is. I don't mean, Seiva, Lamaila Seiva. No, I mean what Seiva is by Etem. Agdor also, that's Nimtza Yoser, and it's present more in Olam Hazeh. And it will soon see, it can even be more Begiloi, it can even actually become Begiloi, Bezeh, and that's what the Rebbe means over there. Maya Bekol Olam Mishova, Gam Yecholiot, that through the Inif and his Kafi Vesitra, then he calls a Giloi down here, and then all the Olamas, they all benefit from that Giloi which was down. But the Ika Gilui was down here, and then they also, what you might call a Makabel from the bandwagon. They sort of get on it. They also get a Gilui. And the Hanami Gilui, they say, can also be Nifal Rakpo. And then, since it's saved, it was Mishkalisa, you might say everybody gets it. It sort of reaches all of them. The Ika, what you might call Marocha, and the Ika Indian, where this whole Indian is mitbatei, or like you use the expression in Yiddish, is tutzachop, that's it, dafke here, lamata. Kein yesh lama v'dera. That's what the mean was, very mystifying expression. Madregas are saved you, who nimtza dafke boilam hazeh. It's an interesting expression. And in the, I just couldn't find it in my room, but in the old, when I say the old Maimon, not an old Maimon, the famous Emshef from Reish Mem Gimel was one of the first Emshef that Rebbe said, Rebbe Rashab. 49 of those Maimon were also written. Ika HaSeiva is Lamata. Ika HaSeiva Lamata, and if I'm not mistaken, over there he gives another beard to the whole thing. But I until I see it, I don't want to say for sure what's written there. I was saying B'derech Zikorin from Kamashonim, but unfortunately I didn't have the save in my room, now so I couldn't be Mavara. But he says something that because Seivadim from Rotzen, where's the Ika Rotzen, Davki B'Shleimus Rotzen, Davki B'Milu Rotzen, well, that's where you have the Ika, Matthias of the Rotzen, that's where it's taken for you. Davki B'Olam Hazeh, that's the Milu Kol HaRotzen, the ultimate, Nisave. Over the Indian from Aseiv was more Nimtzo, Davki B'Olam Hazeh, more B'Teikim. I say it took some state up. I'll be another Jerusalem, it's written another beer. The beer I just gave over now, that's what state. And I think here in Ayin Beis, somewhere in Behemshech, Dav state does. It's in it's how do you call it, two sides of the same coin, Doman. I mean, here in Beis, every now and then you see these amazing Lashonas, just to wait a minute, it's a whole Yesod, and it's a sort of way it just weaves through, a few words, and you can sort of put it together. Yochel Lies, Ishlabshis Kozais, Dainu is Chabas Toivora. Now that's also interesting, because Noiga is not Mamishla, Yesh Begam Toiv. We have to say that like Yabi Amitis are Toiv, that even the Toiv of Noiga is Ra. Avo is a Lamailo. Ein hakoidish or hektish, hakoidish misarev bachoil, v'oimed rak b'pchinas machin. Now here we see lamaila. So the expression lamaila is also tricky, because it means here in the clippers, in the shurish of the clippers. It's hard to say the clippers are lamaila. So what do you mean by the word lamaila in Parshas? He means in the ruchnias, not mitzad oilam hazeh, but the shurish of the clippers, how they function. That he calls that lamaila. Not mitzad the etaminin of oilam hazeh. Ein HaKodesh Misarev B'chov V'imad Rak B'Pchinas Makiv. He said Rak Lamata. Davke down here Yochel Lies is Chabris HaNefesh HaLekis VaNefesh HaBahom Yes Aridei Oirein Seif HaSeivei Ach Zeu Be'elem. In other words, here we have a fascinating idea. Nimtza, it's there. Nimtza, it is, but it's Be'elem. But it's not, and therefore, I'm sure here in Ayin Beis somewhere the Rebbe says it. He defines that principle also a little. He said that it's nimtza, pirush ador, that it's nimtza here lamata behelem, but it has a certain hargosha, it has a certain what you might call hashpua, despite the fact that it's behelem. That would make good sense, because here we see that even though it's only behelem, Nonetheless, it causes Eis Chabos. It does have a certain effect that even Toiv or Ra can be Misachet B'Yachad. But now we're going to see there's an even further Indian, and that fits in maybe nicer with the Lashon of the Basi Lagami. Omnim ze yesh gam kein Gilui HaSeivav, even more. There can be an Indian from Gilui HaSeivav here in this world. Shemamshichim Anidei mitzvahs. Oh, that's Indian from Kiyum mitzvahs. Ukeneida mitzvahs hein Rotzen Ha'elyon, and Rotzen Ha'elyon is Seiv Benimshak Al Yodom Gilui B'chinos Ein Seiv HaSeivav. In other words, a part of the mitzvahs. In Yonam is Rotzana, that's the Indian from Seivav. Oh, and here's a further step. Not only Nimtzo HaSeivav, and not only Puyo Behelem, B'miktas Gilui, or Yesa B'Gilui. So the truth is, it's written in some places, that's also Behelem, Lafiera, because even though it's Nimtza or Odom and Nimsha B'Gilui, over the Ika Gilui is only going to be, I'm getting a bit weary of saying that Ika is only going to be, this is only going to be, let's get moving. What are we waiting for? How long have you been saying this is going to be? Yes, anyway, the Rebbe said this is going to be is already be. It's already there. Yes, anyway, whatever. Yeah. So he says the Ike of that Gilui, even though it's a Gilui, is going to be Liasi. However, a mitzvah is yesh bohem zgula protius lahalish or akasha nefesh habamis lelikus. That's the way the Gilui works. When you do the mitzvah, and that's brought down in Sforim, that we see all different mitzvahs have got different inyonim. What if it's well known that if you do that mitzvah, then that's a zgula, it's poil for you this, and it's poil in some other inyonim. Like we see, but just because we're talking about sukkahs, and yeshivas sukkah causes asimcha, or kora, the inifin is asimcha, gilui asimcha, and the inifin Rosh Hashanah is shouted in Kabbalah Seir and Tekiyah Sheva, shouted in Yom from Lamayla Mitzvah. Each mitzvah has got its own zgula, which is puyo in a oifen masuyam in the nefesh habami. And it's even brought down in certain Sforim, certain skulas, even yoter proti is. If you mahader in a certain mitzvah, then it's a skula la'inyan zeh, v'chuli v'chuli. So the Rebbe said that those things are not al-pi tam, but they're not al-pi seidah. No, that's the gilui that a seivav in a form of taking the nefesh habamish, mamish by his nose and lifting him up into a edelkeit and a isbararus, losing his chumiyas and being shaykh into drawing him into the Inyan of Kedusha. In other words, that those skulas pratias, or they're connected with the Inyan of the nefesh habamish. On the day with that skula pratis is miskala, or that's a sign that the nefesh habamish has been misale into a dakis yoser and become bottled more to the nefesh habamish. Okay, Kain. Now we're going to see a little bit later on here in the Maimonim HaKrevim that the Inif in the Ketores in Avodah is connected with the Avodah of Rusa Deliba, and Rusa Deliba means Avodah Maila Mitam Fadas. But the Avodah how it is, even for Rotz and Halev, that's Pnimis, Vatzimis Halev, Kiyadua. Even though in Tanya occasionally the word Rusa Deliba is used a filu finyonim which are shaykh referred to time with us, but the immediate musik of Rusa Doliba here in these inyonim means the Avodah Shalamalami Medida Vagbola altogether. So he said that the Gilui HaSeivav can also be Gilui HaSeivav can be mitzad that type of Avodah. And that's Avodah Klolis in the whole Inyan of the Adam and his Avodah in Torah Mitzvahs. It's Lamailami Tavadas, it's called Ryusada Deliba, and it's kilo, a form of B'midah She'odam Moeded, Kach Moeded Imloi, not Midah Keneged Midah, but B'midah She'odam Moeded, Kach Moeded Imloi, or Odam, Noisen Maloi Oimsoi, Ba'elam Hazeh, Noisen Maloi Oimsoi. And Milmaila, that's Ayin, a kilo Midah Keneged Midah, even though it's not, in the real sense, that having given himself in a form of Makif, Etzloy, and in a form of almost what you might call a form of Yetziyah, we call Gedorim Shaloi, a form of Hefkeiras, then Ali Dezehu, who Mamshik, Lamata Gam, the Inyan of Seivav, Begilui. Okamoshi is Boer. שעל ידי זה הוא עיקר בירור הנפש הבאמיות בבחינת יסהפכך שויגלין הוירו כמו שיסבור. We'll see as we go along. That's really going to take a bit of time, the pace that we move, but it's going to be misbah later on. That even from Yusa Deliba, or that Aveda Lamaila Legamri from Medida Vakbola, or that can bring not only to a Bira in the Nefesh Abamis, but eventually Bitule, Legamri, and Mamela, Kemavu and Tanya, is Sapchuse into the Inyan Kedusha. So we'll see that's Daf Kitoloi in Aveda completely Lamaila Medida Vakbola of Seichel. And that's what we'll see. It's connected. It's got a certain kesher to that concept of shtus de kedusha amavu in Bosilikan. V'chol zeh hu alidei hanefesh elokis. Oh, now here's an interesting chiddush. V'chol zeh hu alidei hanefesh elokis davke. She'im hoyo hagilul hanefesh abami hoyo mizbater legamrei. V'lo yibeder biro. Okeneda be'inyan habrachas de'yitzchak. That if you'd have brought down the brachas directly onto Esav, it would have either been Niv Loboy or would have caused him Ashvili, he would have been misbattled. The Gamri moment, you say. Mitnesha ain't a Kli Lela, goes, Rak, Alidei, Hanefesh Elokis, Davke, U Abira, the Nefesh Abamiyah. Here's a very fascinating Nakuda. What it comes out is that even weren't for the fact that the Nefesh Elokis and Makifim of Seive would be Mizkala in the Nefesh Abamiyas, it would be destroyed. It would be lost altogether. Seive, Amiti, this type of Seive that we're talking here, Gilu Seive, if that were to be Mizkala in the Nefesh Abamiyas, he would be completely lost altogether, and there would be lacking the whole in a Bira, Alachas Kama Vakama, Loyan and Reif van die Sapchach Sechelim, then that is all Zichanish time. Even though you can think maybe yes, because if it was such a power, then so here we see an amazing thing that the Gilui of Seiva Kalaman has to be two and Alidei the Nefesh Elokis. The Nefesh Elokis, she through Torah mitzvahs and through a fellow Rusa Deliba and Manoch Inyanim that we'll see, the Nefesh Elokis, she divides up how the Nefesh how the Seivu Kolamin is going to affect the Nefesh Abam. In other words, it goes through the Nefesh Elokis, and even though Be'ikar, that's Ayin from Seivu, of the Nefesh Elokis is able to pass that over into the Shetach of the Nefesh Abam, is even that he won't be misbattled. In other words, if we battle, even though the Nefesh Elokis in Yonah is Pnimi, but Derech La, that's the Pshat, she comes from Atzilas, and Derech the Inyonim, Chochma, what they're Inyonim for Noah Pnimi, of a mitzvah, the fact that she's Elokus Pietze, and Ike in Yonah is Menet Virotz and Havaya, and ever you can be Megala to her, the Inyan of the Ur HaSeiv, and she, as it were, parts it out to the Nefesh Abam. She divides up the Ur HaSeiv over to the Nefesh Abam is Bo'even Kazer, that he will eventually be Makabaret and he will be Mizbareh. But she doesn't take the whole Kabul of the Seiv Kalam with one mach and give it over to the Nefesh Abam, because then it's not going to help. It'll be any of an Avod and Vabitl, just like it would have been. But that was Kilo the Chisoran in the Inif and the Kavana of Birchas Yitzchak, that at that particular time it wouldn't be able to be Shayach, so we would just cause him Ayin Shal Bitl, or Ayin, and it would be Lavochi Nivla Boy, which you write as a Lora Chok, Kokak Zemi Zeh. And that's a fascinating meaning. Here we see that all Inyonim are filled with Mailam Midida Vakbola. All Inyonim, when they come with Derech Seiv, they have to be nimshach into the hands of the Nefesh Elokis. Then she divides them up, and as you were, splits them up into the pocket of the Nefesh Abamiyas. Otherwise, the Nefesh Abamiyas wouldn't be shy. And all those Gulas Pratius and all those Inyonim eventually, if it's Hapcha, they just wouldn't happen. It's a that the Nefesh Elokis is Kilo, what you might call the conductor of the band, that she receives all the Giluim, and she, as it were, spreads out the Gilu Aseivu, and sprinkles it in such a way that the Nefesh Abamis is able to take it. Avahenda Chanami, Biladei, that Koyach Aseivu, the Bitl Seifi is an Amiti in the Nefesh Abamis wouldn't be shy. It's a very fascinating Nekuda. The Ik is the Nefesh Elokis. But so who really runs the show is the Nefesh Elokis in all inyan. I feel when you do mitzvahs and everything, all these Segula Tikinyonim which reach the Nefesh Abamis, but they're at Segula, they all have to go through the Nefesh Elokis. It's not as, hocus pocus is what it looks. It goes through the, the conducting power of the Nefesh Elokis, Davke. It's a fascinating Nakuda. Well, we see that it's becoming bedtime stories around here. V'alpi hanal yuvan inen hakrofis ha'ayim porim. That's quite a bedtime story, that one. You will understand even hakros ha'ayim porim b'chagatzukis shezeu biru ha'ayin shorim denoige, as is well known, that this shivim porim, that they were connected to shivim women, but the shores of the shivim women is the yin for the ayin shorim. Yeah, in other words, the maki for the clippers. The hine yedua the makivin the sukkis hein me'anan hakitoyros the Yom Kippurim. Shezeu biro hayud alav kisorim. That's a biro. Not only stam a biro, he is bor al kaman the kitoyros the Yom Kippurim who oid biro elin yoter. We'll see not just stam a biro, but that's a biro like we saw ein shalish hapcha. Not just stam varad in the tzutzes and boil in them a beetle, but it's also poil ein shal heipach mutzius and megamri to the Inyan HaKedusha, and therefore we'll see that that's connected with the Avodas HaTshuva, with the Inyan HaTshuva Nailis B'Yesa, which is Shat Yom Kippur. Oksiv ki be'onon ero'eh al ha-kapoiras, with the onon I will be seen, ero'eh bi'at shmusi, in other words, the Inyan from Amitius, Gilu Asayv. Nimshach b'pinas makif, it's nimshach, or that inyan, how it is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, ala kapoiras, or that's nimshach, yidua, into the makifim of the sukkah, v'alidei adalad minim, shebelulav, nimshach b'pnimiyas, k'meshu kosu v'lakachtem lo, lochem, b'yom harishon, but that's an even further and great inyan, which is not called kaf mavur here, that eventually that makif becomes mamish nimshach into pnimiyas. In other words, the inyan from Rasayu, like we saw, the Davki Hilamata, it has the power to be miskale. Mashenkin Bo'ilam Salyanim. So, Halalos Hashem Ko Goyim. V'Koy Ala Nefesh Abam. Yes, interesting. The Rebbe says the Ko Goyim is referring beacon to the Nefesh. The Nefesh Abamis, but that reminds one of the famous story of Shmuel Monkeys. What he said to the altar Rebbe when he first he sort of barged his way into the altar of his house late at night, and the altar Rebbe smiled at him and said, "If you're not careful, I'll bring the goy to throw you out." So he said, Rebbe, he said, bring Tara goy. He said, to mine goy is a sakres of an ira goy. That's the Alter so the Alter really was pleased with that one. The Alter really understood the joke, and he became a very devoted chassid of the Alter. He understood it. That's the Inyan, Hallelujah, Hashem Kol Goyim, all the different Nefesh Abamis. All the Nefesh Abamis. Shagam, it's interesting, because he started with the Ayin Sorim Denoiga. You should come back to the Goyim, don't forget about the Goyim in the Nefesh Abamis. As I said, the Koyal Nefesh Abam, Shagam Nefesh Abamis is Bara V'yeh B'chinas, Avol Elokus, like we said, that's the Inyan, when Esapcha, or even before Esapcha, she can have a tough time in the Inyan for Elokus. So alidei ki govor aleinu chasdei. That's because there's his gavras upon us. Who is us? B'chinas gilei amakim. Shagilei hu lenefesh elokis. Aleinu to us means to the nefesh elokis, and that's the Inyan of the gilei amakim we saw at the end of the Maimer Davki to the nefesh elokis, and she knows how to give that makif over into the nefesh abamis. So ki govor aleinu davke. Aleinu meaning the nefesh elokis. Who are we? We are the nefesh elokis. Nefesh elokis, who shemavarer as a nefesh abamis. Taki with the koyach hamakif. Oh, she knows how to deal with her, and how to give it over. So Hallelujah Hashem Kol Goyim. ליש כי גובה עלינו חסדוי וכי נשכילו המקיף על ידי זה כמה נפש הפעמיס יהלל וישבח. So we see that the Ike, the Rebbe places these Ike, the Ike spotlight falls on the nefesh habahmis, even though the Ayin Purim we connect the Ayin Tzorim Alzheimer's of so the Ike Mechutin is the nefesh habahmis. If you get rid of him, B'derem Mamela the Ayin Tzorim will be misbattled. Right? We saw it. All the other oil was Chaparayim. One the mensch took by Zichep. It's very fascinating. He starts with he finishes up the whole Sikum Ayin is talking the nefesh.
The bigger Kiddush is the Goyim Kipshuta.
Yeah, well, that's what he says. The Ayin Tzorim is their shurish. Yeah. What he means to say is that the remes being that if we'll just do something without nefesh habahmis, he said, all the Goyim will just follow suit. All the Inyanim will fall into place. So even though in the Chanami, it's a sign. It's also the man has to ask himself the question: what's tutum with them? Even though it's a minute before Mashiach and everything's been finished, Alzheimer's, but you see that you still got to ask yourself: be careful. Where are you really holding? Are you still drying a cup, or are you not? That sort of question is always going to be, according to the Talmud, maybe even an element more. That sort of question is always going to be relevant. That's what I learned out from that little piece there. Emphasis all the Ayin Tzorim of watch it, watch it. Make sure you're mavarahim, or if you're mavarahim and you got him under control, then you can approach away. Sometimes, the Vuadim or Lanoshim, my wife said to me this morning, she said, I think that the main problem is there's still quite a lot of yeshus around. That was a very interesting remark. She said, there's too much yeshus around. And, when you think about it, it's a very intelligent remark. It's still, this little nefesh habahmis is still, with all the tremendous signorin that the Rebbe gave us and revealed to us and all but you've got to be careful that, not let that little nefesh habahmis, therefore you get him under control, you get him, then, Hallos Hashem, Kol Goyim, and the Kol Ayin Tzorim, and the got to do it, it comes under control. Very geweld. Hoe is het daar?
It's Tu B'Shvat.
Huh?
It's Tu B'Shvat.
Yeah, it's Tu B'Shvat. They're having a verbringing. One of the guys got a birthday as well. So they're having a little verbringing, yeah. So,
what's the vote for B'Shvat?
Huh?
What's the union?
What's the union? The union is, like we just said, you have to be a mensch. Adam Eitzasodehu. Adam is a Aleph down. Mamshik signed the Aleph in the down. Mikala signed the beat is Adam Eitzasodehu. And Eitzasodehu means that you grow. So, we can't be satisfied with just, Alt Shchor. To progress and grow. And we've got to bring payers. That's a best of the gun. That's even from China. The gun is even to give payers. We know. And that's a killer from Mashiach. We have a China. The China approaches the China. We take and some of them. I mentioned about if I bring we were talking about this amazing killing in the middle of nowhere. The Rebbe gets on of the Baal Tshuva. Pash Vayishlach in some of all. Shtafi, the Ayin from Baal Tshuva. It's so overpowering to read. What's this about Tshuva? How does he cross? What's the taste is greater than the Tali Goma? What's the taste? It's mind-blowing. Absolutely. Rabbi wasn't Ben Judayo, the whole classical sort of cook and the tzaddik and gemorim and the Baal Barifas, so for the Sheine, Shtafchas and that's ki Adam Eitzasodehu. you're going to give Hales into the world, bring Reinig into the world. Enough, enough Tsar, just Sefer Reinig. Reinig, a pushet with the color of Gatsmas, with the other Kelledik, the Shane, that's the curve. Isn't it? Kiva Moyer, sorry, come to time for it.
I must say.
Good. Okay, guys. So be well. And we should, let's say the Hitarot in Jerusalem, take it from Yad Mamish. The Zayka Ad Mosai.